Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. So today we have Kasturi Mahanta ma'am with us, author of Red, Green, and Sometimes Beige, beautifully capturing the in-between shades of relationships. That completely sums up our lives. Well, ma'am is also a relationship coach, a psychologist, and she reflects how our life moves through phases. Let's go on air with Volkswagen, ma'am. We are so delighted to have you today.
Thank you, Shubhangi. That was a very sweet introduction. Very apt also. So thanks.
So, ma'am, before moving to the bookie questions, I want to know that you said you first were into designing and then you came into this psychology phase of yours and now as a writer. So, could you just take us through this journey of yours?
Of course, my journey as a therapist and an author has been definitely very varied. It has not been very linear, so to speak. And I worked in a different field for almost 8, 9 years, where I was so much into market psychology, user experience. And over a period of time, I gravitated towards learning it more from an internal, intrinsic point of view, especially around relationships. And with the world that we are in today, with the influx of dating apps, with the influx of options, with weddings happening in full swing, but marriages not lasting, I thought my inclination towards relationships require a much more focused direction through studying psychology, couple relationships, marriages extensively. And then, of course, I started educating people about this obvious gap in conscious relationships in India through Instagram on my page, Famous Therapist. And that's how I started my writing journey, right from writing these carousels and posts on Instagram, blogs on it, for my website, and kind of progressed over. It was not an overnight journey for sure. I progressed from a lot of writing for the internet to finally writing for people and on print. So that's how my book journey and my psychology journey has been.
Okay, so ma'am, I really want to know that why red, green, and beige? What do these colors symbolize?
Interesting question. Of course, and being the title of my book, I definitely feel like that was an explanation. Red, green, and sometimes beige are flags in a relationship. And what happens usually when we speak of relationships is that we are always gravitating towards who is a toxic person, right? Or what deficits does this person have? Can I date this person? What is wrong with this person? Whether we're looking for a dating perspective, they're looking for like marriage, that usually happens, right? And in colloquial modern pop psychology, we call it the red flags. The red flags meaning these are things to be wary of, right? These are things that अगर इस बंदे में कुछ ऐसा है कुछ there's something wrong कुछ गड़बड़ है right so red flags come from that but the opposite of it the green flags are the no-brainers they are the bare minimum they are it's almost like you struck gold if you have like a lot of green flags in a person right and now we have a new term it's not just like he's not just a green flag or they are not just a green flag they're a green forest right so that means that we have a lot of green flags with this person and the beige ones are the it's an interesting nuanced concept, right? That in a relationship, it's not always good or bad. There are also things that we are not very aligned to, but we choose to choose them. For example, my partner loves to leave his wet towels on the bed. Now, because I like so much about things about him, I'm okay letting that slide. It's not a habit that I like, but it's a habit I can bear. So those that give me the ick, but it's not like a deal breaker. If I notice that, it does not like change the relationship and how I feel about my person, but it definitely gives me some kind of irritation. उससे शायद एक conflict हो या उससे शायद बीच का कुछ अनबन हो, but it really does not break the relationship. I don't start hating him for like okay गीला काल क्यों बेड पे रख दिया, right? Those traits, for example, हर चीज के साथ केचप खाना या 10 कप कॉफी पीना can all be beige flags depending on who you are and what you like.
So, ma'am, like One question I think the whole generation wants to know from you: how many red flags is too many red flags?
That's such an interesting question. And unfortunately, my answer to this is that I cannot give you like a ballpark figure or a number. But a good start would be to know who you are and what you like in relationships. Because a lot of us get into relationships knowing, oh, I like the person. They are beautiful, they are handsome, or they are, from a certain background, right? And it's mostly chemistry first, logic second. To answer your question of how many red flags are too many red flags, it would be to understand yourself first. What is it that you like in a relationship? Why do you even want a relationship? What does marriage mean for you? Right? And once you understand those traits from your own self, it gives you a list of non negotiables. For example, one red flag would be dishonesty, right? Inconsistency in stories. That my partner is not a very honest person, for example. While I know many people who can live with like 80% honesty, I'm a person who might like 100% honesty. So for me, that becomes a huge red flag. That's a non-negotiable. And even if one red flag, that particular red flag of dishonesty is present in the relationship, for me it's a no-brainer. It's a no-go. I wouldn't continue with that person, right? But how do I have that clarity? It's because I have clarity over my traits and what I like or what I want in a relationship. So more than the other person, and how many red flags or green flags they have, we must also look internally and kind of understand who we are as a person and what are the things that we like in a relationship and what does a relationship actually mean for us. And that can give us a number around, yeah, if I have three of these, I think I don't want to go ahead and like, make this into a relationship, for example. And that can give you clarity, but of course it's a journey. I'm not saying that it's very simple. It of course takes a bit of soul searching and maybe some nights of tears and just acceptance to kind of get to that point.
Ma'am, the beach flag, like it sounds like an in-between phase of a relationship. Why is it important for people to know about it, to be in it?
It's not important for people to know about it, honestly. It's enough to know your green and red flags. But then, if you don't know that beige flags exist, you will constantly be irked. You'll be like, oh, are we not compatible? And you will kind of question the differences that are required for a relationship to work. Your partner is not your mirror, they can't be your twin. Even twins have differences, right? Sometimes we get caught up into the idea that if it is the right relationship for us, everything will be hunky dory. There will be no fights, there will be no conflicts. We will agree to everything. If I love pizza, they love pizza, and wow, it's a match made in heaven. How dare they order chole? Right? So, are we not compatible enough? The beige flag as a concept exists so that we can normalize the differences in a relationship. Normalizing those differences are necessary, especially in today's generation and age, because every ick cannot be a way out of the relationship. A relationship is a byproduct of everyday choice. I wake up and I choose this person, regardless of how they like their teeth. And the entire label of beige flags exists so that differences are normal till a point you understand and have clarity between what is toxic and unhealthy and what is healthy and consciously you are choosing for yourself. Hence the beige flags concept.
Ma'am, what do you think, like if you compare the generation of the millennials and the Gen Z group, so what do you think was the deal breaker in relationships in the millennials age and now in the Gen Z phase? Is there anything in common? What changes have you noticed?
I think it's interesting to see how relationships have evolved over a period of time, right from when and how our parents got married to how marriages are happening today, and to even if they are happening today or not, Um, but there are some core values that remain same. And for a relationship to actually work out, there needs to be a lot of everyday commitment. I think millennials we're one of the first ones to kind of get exposed to the plethora of options in the form of dating apps. So that generation, with the technology used, with the internet, and with like, XYZ apps in their lives, had a plethora of options to select from, which now as a trend has kind of gone a bit sour because, the Gen Z is already exposed to that from a long time, and the options only confuse them more. But millennials, I think, had a ball with all of the options because it was one of the refreshing ones, right from when just arranged marriages or office romances or, just like going on the street and like hitting on somebody and that's how you meet happen to like a plethora of options. And millennials had a bit of, I would say, paralysis, choice paralysis when it came to there were so many options there. But I think for them, commitment and beyond that options, the right match had to happen. But for I think Gen Zs, I feel like it's so much more acceptance. And they look for how can I they are not dating because they have to date and there is pressure from family. I think Gen Zs are doing a very good job putting their boundaries in place and saying, I'm not going to get pressured, mama, don't pressure me, and stuff like that. They're getting very good at that. They also are very clear as a generation about what they want. They are trying to be more conscious and not falling for just chemistry or looks or your status or how much income you have in the bank. But for them, I feel like holistic acceptance of each other. I want to continue my life in a certain way. Are you completely accepting of that? And this is beyond gender, right? Both man, woman, whoever you are. I think for Gen Z is what I see as a trend, as like a psychologist who deals with individuals and couples on an everyday basis. I definitely see that the want and the desire for acceptance, holistic acceptance, of course, with their own narratives of what acceptance look like, is a huge one, more than what millennials have.
Ma'am, since you were talking about acceptance and various factors, so what is that one major factor which does lead to a stable and healthy relationship according to you?
I wish I had just one thing to give you from this, right? But I don't. What I would say, but definitely helps build a healthy relationship, is just waking up every day and making that choice. Love, is not just like an emotion that I feel all the feels, because the emotion will change over time. There are certain phases of a relationship when the initial chemistry and the rose-colored glasses wear off. There needs to be something else to keep the relationship alive. And there will be many, but it starts off with the conscious choice that I am choosing the person despite of not knowing what those traits are immediately today. So the lack of urgency, which I think regardless, even if you're an adult in your 50s, to like, you are a 15, 16-year-old who's just understood the concept of like the opposite sex maybe, we all struggle with knowing and having clarity and this urgency because of the amount of chemical reactions that happen when you fall in love, or when you get attracted to somebody. I think these two things, to be able to understand and regulate yourself to a point that even if you don't have the immediate answers today, you choose the other person enough to figure it out, can be one way to actually pave the path for a healthy relationship.
Well, ma'am, before ending the conversation, what is your red and green flag?
Very cliched that way. My red flag is dishonesty and inconsistencies in stories. I cannot bear to kind of deal with. We are all adults, and lying is a choice. That's what I feel. And to be able to have that kind of clarity within your own self, to be honest regardless. And there are different ways to be honest. A lot of us think that if I'm honest, I'm going to hurt the other person. But it's mostly about, are you willing to sit with the discomfort of the action that you need to be honest about? So I think that dishonesty would be definitely a red flag. For me, green flag would be effort. I think I'm big on effort. Without effort, relationships don't sustain. feelings are not enough. So if a person shows up, I see a lot of acknowledgement and validation on this. So yes, this is a crowd favorite really. But yes, effort helps maintain the consistency of feelings and makes it a tad bit easier for me to at least get up and choose the other person always.
Ma'am, it was great talking to you. Is there any other thing you would like to tell our readers?
Shubhangi, likewise, thank you for this lovely conversation. For the readers, go read the book. That's all as an author I can tell you. And if you please, I do a lot of relationship content on Instagram, so you can follow me at Hey Miss Therapist. And my book is Red, Green, and Sometimes Beige, the ins and outs of a healthy relationship. So go give it a read. And if you do, and if you like it or if you don't like it, hit me up on my DM and let me know. Okay? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this conversation, and thank you everyone for being with us here today.
Hi guys, my book Red, Green, and Sometimes Beige, The Ins and Out of a Healthy Relationship is now available on bookswagon.com. You can go and purchase your copy today.